Hello. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning.
I am so excited for today's guest. So she's a friend of yours, and, choosing the people that we invite on, I wish we could have everyone that we love so much come on, but we always have to choose somebody. So I'm curious why you chose our guest that's coming on today.
Christa Hull, our next guest, is somebody that I've known for a very long time. Not only did we work together in a career long ago, our lives have kind of done that beautiful ebb and flow of somebody who's just always there, out there, and they're almost a comfort because they're out there and they share so many of the same values. And so, just as the world pulls together all these threads of connection, Christa Hull came up as a connection. We hadn't chatted in a very long time. Something came up that brought us together. And as we were talking, we recognized almost without saying that we wanted to do something again together. And what that looked like in this case was saying to Christa, would you join us on the Half-Betty show? I would love for our listeners to be able to hear your story, to hear of the catalysts of transformation that you have experienced in your middle years. And without a beat, Christa Hull said, absolutely, I would love to be on your show. And so really, when it comes down to deciding, I think sometimes the decision is not a black and white in the moment. This is the right person, check all the boxes. There's a beautiful intuition, a beautiful intuitive understanding of the people that will gain as much from being on the show as those that are going to hear their story. So I'm thrilled that Christa Hull is going to be joining us. She has a beautiful story that will inspire.
Well, should we invite her on and get started?
Yes, I'm buzzing. It's not the coffee. It's the company.
Yes.
Yes, we should.
Okay, let's meet Christa Hull.
We're here. It's happening.
Here we are.
Christa Hull, so excited to see you again. I'm so grateful to have you here today. And I'm thrilled that we're going to be able to have this time with you to hear your story and to understand why you are such a beautiful part of this Half-Betty community and that you're going to be able to touch so many people with your own personal story, because it will resonate with so many as they connect to some of the catalysts of your midlife, and also to learn of where you are now, where you are today. So we're going to go on a little journey with you. And when I say we, that will be myself and also our lovely Krista Gruen, Half-Betty producer and co-host. And we just are so thrilled to jump into this conversation and really to turn it over to you to hear your story.
I am so honored and grateful to be a part of this journey that you're embarking on. Since the moment I heard of what you're up to with Half-Betty, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I feel the same. It's just always such a joy to connect with you, Andrea. And now, Christa, we're new friends.
Yes.
Krista friends. Yeah,
Krista
thanks
friends.
so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks for being here.
I want to jump us right in because I don't want to waste even a single moment without you telling us a lot of your story and all of the little details. One of the things that we love to do when we get into these conversations is start with a little bit of an exercise. And when I say exercise, it's the good exercise. It's like the really good exercises that like fuel you. Not that there's bad exercise, but this one is in particular, I think, quite inspiring. And it's also difficult for some people because it's using reflection upon oneself. And sometimes we find that the hardest. So
yes.
With everything that you have done in your lifetime, Christa Hull, I could not think of anybody who would be more ready to be able to share 5 words that you believe really tell us the story of who Christa Hull is. And what I'll say also, do not feel like you're stuck in these 5 words, but I would just love to hear, we would love to hear from you 5 words that bring Christa Hull to life.
What a great question. The first one that comes to me is passionate. I have a lot of passion for this great life of mine. Next, adventurous. willing to try new, more than willing, must try new things often. Ambitious. I'm torn between positive and optimistic. What will I choose? Optimistic, just relentlessly.
What's the difference for you?
Good question. I look at life from a real place of possibility, glass half full. I don't know what the difference is, but I think I lean more towards optimistic, just like always willing to see the good and the positive in things in any situation, maybe even to a fault at times. So I've got passionate, adventurous, optimistic, ambitious,
Yeah.
and love. Love.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of love inside of me to share and give. And I'm more in touch with that today than ever before.
I love that. What beautiful words. I really appreciate what I saw you doing. It's an interesting exercise in that when you ask people these words, watching what they do physically is so fascinating. And you naturally go to this beautiful space of looking up to the world around you. And there's probably a whole other show that would be around body language and gestures, but it's the look on your face as you were thinking about the words is in and of itself very inspiring.
Cool.
It really is. It really is. It shows you such a beautiful peek into who people are. When you can see that those words resonate as they're thinking of them and the smile on their faces, it's a really lovely exercise. So thank you for sharing those 5 words with us.
It's also not an easy thing to do for some people.
It's not.
But I feel
it
like
really isn't
done the work.
Maybe.
I have this feeling.
Maybe the meaning of life is the deep reflection, introspection, self-awareness.
Well, you're in the right place. We're going to get right into it. Christa, we are going into these sessions with what halfbetty is setting up for people, the community that it's building. It's in so many ways, it's uncharted. It doesn't really have a map, as life doesn't, and I understand that. But there's something even, it feels like, more wild in women's midlives with all of the change and with all of the catalysts that seem to occur. And while we start to see that perhaps that is, truthful, we don't necessarily see a place that's capturing those stories as they're being experienced so that others can find connection, perhaps solace, inspiration, something that just tells them that they're okay.
Affirmation.
And so affirmation, being heard or being seen, all of these things. We believe that there are any number of catalysts that kind of start to occur for women in their midlives. And I wonder if perhaps you would draw on your own experiences in midlife and kind of start us there with what that experience was and where it led you.
Yeah. And there are several catalysts that have contributed to my journey, my story, where I find myself today. I think the one that it's difficult for me to reflect, a lot has happened in my life in the last 7 to 10 years, especially the last 5 to 7 years. And it's a little hard to put my finger on like the exact sequencing, but I'll start by sharing that I have been very grateful and fortunate to have built an incredible career working for a number of different Vancouver founded and based lifestyle brands. And I've also been fortunate to work directly for founder-led brands and businesses. And I accumulated about just over 20 years of experience working for a number of different great brands, starting first with Intro West and Whistler Blackcomb. I went on then to spend a number of years at Lululemon. We fortunately crossed paths. From there, I went on to an Australian founded, led business called Bailey Nelson, and supported them in entering the North American market. And then most recently, Sage Natural Wellness, another Vancouver founded. So I accumulated a whole bunch of really incredible experience working for these founder-led, iconic lifestyle brands. And then most recently, I did a shorter stint with a Vancouver founded brand called Stoco startup, my first sort of foray into the startup world. All of these roles, they really tapped into that value or that word that I shared earlier around my ambition. I gave a lot to these businesses over the course of a couple of decades, and I received a lot. So I want to acknowledge that. And maybe I gave a little bit more than I had to give at times, which led me to finding myself in my, let's say, approaching 40 or just turning 40, two young school-aged kids. I'd been traveling for 15 years straight for work, always in different time zones, different cities around North America, did a lot of international travel. And I found myself exhausted. No other way of saying it, but like quite depleted. And for a lot of years, my work was very fueling and energizing for me. And then all of a sudden, I'm approaching 40 and I just don't have the energy that I had to sustain. My vitality started to become compromised with working long hours, being more than 100% in. My dear friend says, Halsey, you only know how to go 200%. And that was true for a long time, and I'm learning. So I think what happened is I became aware that it was time for me to create something of my own. I'd given so much to helping bring other founders' visions to life. And it was time for me to be my own founder, to become my own CEO, to step into the land of entrepreneurship and do things my way on my terms. I want to say that I was so fortunate to work for many incredible, aspirational, inspiring leaders. And I worked for some really challenging leaders. And I became resistant to that. I no longer wanted to work in the context of unconscious leadership. And I just found that I wanted to do it my way. So I decided it was time to step away from the corporate life that I had been leading for a really long time and start to explore what it would look like to create something of my own.
Unconscious leadership is so powerful. Can we dig into that for a second?
Yeah, by all means. Unconscious leadership.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means disconnected leadership, rushing, being ahead of source, like moving more quickly than is required in order to be really mindful and intentional about choices and decisions. Sometimes unconscious leadership has looked like being dismissive, narcissistic, and in reaction, like in a constant state of reaction, where I've spent 20-something years learning how to respond to situations rather than react. I've experienced, I would say, a lot of conscious leadership in my life. So I know what that looks like. And I've also experienced a lot of disconnected, reactive, narcissistic leadership. And it's been challenging. Yeah, I'm like a real stand for healthy, empowered, vital leaders in the world. And that's who I'm here to be.
Wow.
And I'm not perfect. So it's not always
is perfect.
As you were telling that kind of journey, we were hearing so much gratitude for all of the learnings that you got along the way. And even, what I'm taking from that too is that despite the fact that the unconscious leadership experiences are challenging, they also serve.
Yeah.
They serve us because they help us know what we perhaps don't want. And if they didn't occur, we wouldn't have that experience. And so I wonder, as we think about early mid-40s, you've gotten to this place of recognizing and identifying what unconscious leadership looks like by virtue of being where you are. And
exposed to all different types of leadership.
Which is so incredibly powerful.
What a gift.
And what a gift. Right?
Well, it's interesting that you say it's a gift because some people could turn that into a negative and get caught up in it and allow that to take over. And you've chosen to be optimistic. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah.
inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah. Gratitude for every ounce of life experience I've been exposed to contributes to who I am now and what I'll create next. The type of parent I am, all of it. Yeah.
Exactly. So it lends itself to not just one aspect or one kind of lane of your life, but in fact inspires everything and how you show up.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's listeners right now going like, oh, that's great. Like, that's just awesome. Like, how do you stay positive? How do you be optimistic when you're stuck in a job that you can't get out of for whatever reason?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens in relationships too. So what drives the optimism? Is it a state of mind every morning? Is it a practice? Is it a book you read? How do you remain optimistic when things are so challenging?
Oh, that's such a good question. And my brain is going 12 different directions in terms of how to answer it. But the thing that's rising to the surface the most is the distinction that I have around choice. I lose touch with this often and have to go back and remind myself. But I think remembering that I get to choose in every moment how I'm going to react or respond, the decisions I'm going to make, how I'm going to spend my time, the thoughts that I allow to enter my psyche and stick around or not. I really think short answer is remembering that I get to choose in every moment how I want to be, what I want to think about, how I want to speak. So that's been a really powerful lesson and distinction for me. And then I think there's something important to acknowledge about the practices. I am very mindful about my energy these days and really aware of what fuels and positively contributes to my energy and what degrades or takes away from the quality of my energy. And so I have a practice for a couple of years now where I don't have I don't bring a smartphone into my bedroom. It's simple. I plug it in, let's say somewhere around 9 o'clock in the kitchen. It stays there. I go to sleep without it. And then when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I wake up early and I can thank my hormones for that. But I do have a daily practice of
Thank you, hormones.
And you know what? For years, for like 5 years, I was mad about it. Like really mad. And I still get mad about the fact that I wake up much earlier than I would like sometimes. And I choose to embrace that time. There's that power of choice again as this quiet solitude, time to myself before the world wakes up. But I take a good 30, sometimes 45 minutes to ease into the day without any electronics or internet interference. And sometimes I do breath work. Sometimes I meditate. Sometimes I have a really long shower or like sit down and enjoy a cup of coffee. But I usually start my day with some sort of mindfulness practice, usually a meditation or some breath work. And that is such a powerful way for me to start. And when I do take the time to do that, I find that it trickles throughout the day for sure.
It is interesting how we start things will set such an interesting tone of energy for how it then unfolds. I mean, it's so true. We've long talked about this from our days in our shared time with Lululemon, in fact, around the awareness of the energy that we all carry with us just in being human and being alive. How wonderful is that? But that energy...
How lucky are we to have choices as well? That we can choose.
Absolutely.
That we have the ability to choose. Yeah.
And just that energy, it actually is what we bring. We bring ourselves, but that is actually in the form of energy. And so where we choose to put that energy, as you were describing, putting it into a morning routine that sets you up for the day is something that we can actually all choose to do, which I love. I love the practicality of just being able to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to get up. If it's not due to hormones, which many of us will totally agree with, that's what's happening. But if it's not for hormones, then, if want to set an alarm for half an hour earlier and then just saying for 30 minutes, I'm going to practice this thing, or I'm going to just sit quietly.
Total game
It's
changer.
amazing.
Once in a while, I forget or I get distracted and I'll go to find the meditation that I want to listen to, but I accidentally open the text message instead. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes is saying yes to information coming in before I'm grounded, present, and ready. And if I see something that is time sensitive or I'm in reaction to, I will literally spend the next 90 minutes as I'm like getting myself ready, getting my kids ready, making lunches, preparing myself for my day. I'll be obsessed with that thing. And then I'm late and then I'm cranky and I'm in reaction when my kids are slow. And it's that simple that when I let clutter or distraction or noise come in when it's not the right time, it can have a cascade effect all the way through the whole day until the time I go to sleep. I find I'm very sensitive. I think we are sensitive that way. Energy.
That's wild. Do you want to continue through this journey of one of the things that you've experienced over these years and continue us through to where that has led you to now? We've got our listeners probably in a little bit of a perfect cliffhanger moment where we've heard this career that's moved through all these different spaces and it's kind of positioned you to where you are today.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit more about where you are now?
Yeah, I do. And I think before I do, I want to share just a little bit more context around what else contributed to.
You said you had a few more catalysts
There's
to go
a few
through.
other things.
Hey friends, Christa here. Andrea and I are thrilled to offer an exclusive discount to our halfbetty subscribers. We've fallen in love with our Chelsea boots from Bose & Co. They're soft, breathable, and handcrafted with 100% vegan, eco-friendly materials. As stylish as they are planet-friendly, this Canadian-founded brand proves you don't have to sacrifice style for sustainability. Featured in Vogue, Cosmo, Glamour, and Forbes, Bose & Co. is offering our halfbetty subscribers 50% off. You're welcome. Find the link in our show notes.
Okay, so I'm 45. I just turned 45 and my son is 7. And so sometime between when my son was born and let's say 5 years ago, I'm at the cusp of 40 and I start to notice that I'm not myself. And it feels like a colossal shift in personality. It started with the sleep interruption and waking between 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and never, ever being able to go back to sleep. Like despite I've tried everything and I'm kind of fresh back to work, full-time sort of corporate world. And I'm traveling a ton and the sleep interruptions start. And it's killing me because I'm in an executive role. I've got 2 young kids. I'm at like a house and I'm trying to take care of myself. I can't get more than like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And I've always loved sleep. So that was not enough. And then I started to experience like really intense, wild and crazy mood swings that I couldn't explain. My number one symptom, I would say, was extreme irritability, like unexplained irritability, where I would lose my temper or my mind for no very good reason at all. And this would happen with my kids, it would happen with my husband, would happen with my dad. And I didn't recognize myself. I would go to my family doctor or I'd talk to my husband. Like when I would talk to people in my inner circle about what was going on, I was often, "Are you depressed? Do you have anxiety?" And those words just didn't resonate with me.
That's what your doctor was asking you? Are you depressed? Do you have anxiety?
My different people in my life, family, friends would ask. And then when I did go sit down with my family doctor, he would have me fill out an assessment and then just slide a prescription for antidepressants across the table. Basically, when I started to explain to people in my close circle how I was feeling, the words like anxiety and depression would come up. Like, oh, is that what it is? And those words just never resonated with me. I was not feeling depressed. And yes, maybe there was some anxiety, but the words that resonated with me were extreme irritability and mood swings that I couldn't explain or put my finger on. And I know so much more now than I knew then, but I didn't know then what I know now. So I didn't make any sense. And to make a very long story short, I started to become aware of what to expect in midlife and started to hear some things about perimenopause and what that was all about. And I'll give a shout out to my friends from Hysterical who have created a really incredible collection of resources and a community that began to come together to talk about this. There's a lot of depth and breadth of incredible resources. And a couple of friends shared podcasts with me. So I started to get really curious about how my hormones were evolving and the role that that might play. And then without going into too much detail, I also had lost my mom very suddenly and unexpectedly in 2019, just a couple of months after my 40th birthday. And so I was dealing with grief and loss, and it was a bit traumatic the way her death went down at like a family dinner party. And then a few months after that, I ended up with a pretty significant injury. I herniated a couple of discs in my low spine. And that put me on a 2-year track learning how to live with pain every day. So work was overwhelming. There was a lot going on. My mom passed unexpectedly. My hormones were going crazy. I had young kids. And then I had this disc injury. And so it was a lot. Like it was really intense.
Yes.
And continuing on the way that I was no longer an option. Like the pace that I was living my life at prior to reaching this midlife moment in time, just it wasn't sustainable, and I couldn't keep doing it. So all of these things contributed to like needing to create a new path forward.
So it sounds like you just reached a point where you needed to make, you know, some shifts. And so what did you find that looked like? What did you start to think about? And tell us a little bit, if you can, some of those things that you may have done.
And the steps to move through that. I mean, you kind of have to sit in it for a minute and then realize that it needs to change. And then
I think I sat in it for like the better part of 2 years, honestly. Like I learned how to feel my feelings.
So it was a conscious choice again to sit in it, or was it not?
Oh, good question. It was, that's such a good question. Was it conscious? I don't know that there was another way. Yeah, I guess it was conscious. That's such a good question, Christa, because part of me wants to say I didn't have a choice, but I did have a choice because I could have gone back to full-time work and numbed out on being busy. But I guess I did make a conscious choice to slow my life down and give myself the space to feel and process and avoid typical numbing practices. So my addiction was being busy and being needed. So for 20 years, I did really well being needed and busy and like in demand. And so I guess, so I made a conscious choice not to seek full-time employment. And I gave myself about 6 months of like, you're just going to take care of yourself for 6 months. And that looked like going on a 20-kilometer bike ride on a Tuesday morning after dropping my kids off at school. Or it looked like, oh gosh, I'm like, do people care about this? It looked like going through my drawers and decluttering my home after years and years and a buildup of stuff. It was like slowing down and learning to slow down and listen to what was needed. And there were a couple of days in the summertime that I'd drop my kids off at school and I'd go to my favorite beach, put down a blanket and read a book. These are things that were never available to me previously. I caught up with friends. I started taking meetings. I don't do a coffee meeting, well, very rarely, but I would meet up with people who inspired me from my business network and community. And we'd go for walks in the forest or along the seawall, or we'd go for a bike ride. I just started to learn to slow down, live at a slower pace. Oh, and with the back injury, I did a lot of taking care of myself through like osteopathy, and acupuncture has served me really, really well in my rehabilitation. I discovered Pilates and started doing like regular clinical Pilates to heal my back. So I healed my back, and it was a slow and steady process to doing so. I got therapy and counseling and coaching. I found myself a spiritual teacher, like all to help me navigate patterns that were repeating themselves in my life around my relationship with my parents and my upbringing. So I gave myself the gift of some time and space to like be. There were definitely some teachers and leaders that inspired me. Shout out to Dr. Julie Caldwell, who is probably the most influential person in teaching me the number one rule, which is anyone gets to feel anything they want at any time for any reason, including myself. So she's probably the most influential person in helping me learn how to feel my feelings, and that it's okay, and to allow it. Not only is it okay, it's like absolutely necessary. So yeah, I went on a journey of learning how to slow down, resist the urge to numb, and to heal myself physically and spiritually.
Yeah.
That's no big deal.
Wow.
You just totally
I'm
changed
just
your life.
digesting everything. And, though we can't see our listeners because we're on a call where we can see one another, it's so interesting to watch how people respond, including how I also feel that I respond. And as you're talking, I can see both myself and Christa Gruen nodding, just almost a constant nod.
Nodding.
Thank you for nodding.
And then
yes, very affirming.
And then a leaning in. And what it tells me is that, like we were talking about, it's, and you actually said something, Christa, that made me laugh. Christa Hull, you said, do people even care about this?
Oh
and
my gosh,
both Christa and I were like,
my world,
yes, they
my
do. Because this is what is so engaging about hearing people's stories, is that as you're sharing so generously, we can, as just humans, realize and see how much carries through from just being human. And so there's already such a cathartic sense that comes from being in conversation and hearing words or hearing descriptions from somebody else, that you can say, oh my gosh, I hear that. And I recognize that feeling of grief, or I am empathetic to that story because, I have a story that maybe it has some similarities. I just really think that being able to share people's journeys is so impactful. It is generous because we're in a world that, has kind of created us to behave so quickly and so kind of transactionally in our experiences with others that not only do we perhaps not give up a lot of ourselves anymore because it's just not reaching an audience, but likewise, we perhaps don't give a lot of people time to be able to share their stories and really hear those stories.
I think it's really interesting that if you're with a girlfriend or you're thinking about a moment in time when you're consciously going out to meet a friend, how are you? Oh, I'm great. I'm fine. Oh, good. How are you? It tends to start this thing right away where we have to highlight the positive, right? And we have to, my life is not great right now, but I'm gonna get through this, and I'm gonna say that it's fine. And the good ones, the ones that really care about you, the ones that really know you, will stop and listen. But that trajectory that you were on of like, go, like everything was like piling until it literally just had to stop. And that happens, I think, more than we share.
Yeah.
Thank
for sure it does. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, because I looked around at a whole bunch of other powerful women that I've looked up to in my life and didn't see the cracks in their family. It was not visible to me. So I definitely spent a lot of time thinking, is it just me? Like, am I the only one screaming uncontrollably at my husband for no reason?
That question of like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, what's wrong with me?
This isn't normal. Exactly. This isn't okay. Judging yourself.
And I will say, being somebody who is very naturally optimistic and positive, that's what my family, friends, and community have come to expect from me.
Yeah.
And it was very uncomfortable for me to navigate this period of not feeling organically and authentically optimistic and positive. I was freaking out.
That's so interesting.
And I thought, well, people aren't going to want to be around me because people come, I know for a fact, people come to me for light,
sunshine,
energy,
and brightness,
sunshine.
and happy.
Yeah. And there was a few years where there was very few flickers of light. And so I was really self-conscious about who I wanted to social media, I just went kind of quiet and dark because I didn't think people would value being around me or hearing from me in those dark days.
Because you felt perhaps that I think what I heard is that you felt like you would not meet their expectations of who you were meant to be for them.
Yep. 100%.
Which is really hard, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was hard. And I did. I worried about that a lot. And now I've shared enough that I know that the sharing resonates. And I've also been so fortunate to have had exposure to other women sharing. And so now I know sharing is the only way. But there was a lot of, self-consciousness.
Of course.
About it.
Did you find that there were any things that you found particularly hard? Or you noticed how difficult it was? And what were they?
This I don't know how much I like talking about, but I'm going to because I know somebody out there needs to hear it. I went through kind of an identity crisis. What got me to where I was at the age of 40 was not going to get me to 80. So my dad moved away when I was 7. Shout out, Bruce, I love you. I'm actually so clear in this moment about that fact. My dad moved away when I was 7. And I spent my whole life from that moment on trying to be somebody that people would want to be around. Because I was devastated that he didn't want to, I made it mean that he didn't want to be around me. So that took my natural charisma, positivity, and amplified it. And that served me really well. It got me to some pretty amazing opportunities in my life. And it all had to do with my work. I threw myself into my work and I got really good at what I did. And I became a really, I think, exceptional leader of people and exceptional community builder. And people knew me for that and celebrated me for the work that I got to do with some incredible brands that took me around the world. And with my teams, I got to create some really amazing things. And when I stopped working and I slowed down, my ego took a massive hit of who am I now? I remember having sobbing conversations with my coaches about this. Who am I even if I'm not in charge of this multi-million-dollar budget or this big team? Or it was so vulnerable. The people that I surrounded myself with were relatively like-minded, really focused on their careers, steadily growing and increasing their impact and contribution. And all of a sudden, what I was choosing to focus on, another thing I did with my slower lifestyle was I started showing up on the school grounds. And I started connecting with my kids' friends and teachers and the school community and volunteering my time. And so it was a total pendulum swing. And it was very, very, very uncomfortable for me to not identify as a career-driven woman on a daily basis. And when people would ask me every single day, what are you doing for work? I'm actually not working. It was so uncomfortable to talk about in the beginning. And so-and-so's getting a promotion. No, I was not working. I was going for bike rides, going to the beach, hanging out on the school grounds. And now I'm so proud of myself. But in the moment, I was embarrassed and shameful that I couldn't identify with that, I don't know, with titles and influence and power and resources. I'd have big, huge teams executing stuff. So I started, after I took some time off, I started to think, okay, how can I create a business for myself? And I thought, well, I love coaching. I've always loved coaching my teams that I've led over the years. And I've had some exposure to some coach training and tools and resources. And I decided to learn how to be a coach. And I also started to explore opportunities where I could get into some consulting work. And so, those early stages of people asking me, what are you up to in your career? And talking about exploring coaching and consulting and taking a crack at building a business for myself, I had a ton of like imposter syndrome around it. I was really afraid. I was so afraid of working alone. I had it that being an entrepreneur meant that I was going to have to give up collaboration and working with teams. And I've come to learn that's not true at all. I still get to work as a part of teams in the businesses and brands that I work with and support. And I still have opportunity to do a lot of collaboration, but I was really afraid of working alone. And so I'm sorry, I think I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but your question was what was really hard? The hardest thing was
it's great.
Reinventing myself and talking about who I am and like what I'm up to in the world without being like so heavily reliant on talking about my career.
Yeah. Again, I'm nodding, I'm leaning in. I think we all are. You said something around how you had through your life, and then you use numbed. That really is a powerful word. And you used it in connection with staying so busy that you don't have to think about or feel anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about who you are because you're in it.
I want to ask you, did guilt come in at all? Because I haven't heard that word at all. And I feel like I don't want to speak for women around the world, but I do feel that there's a lot of guilt that enters when you're going through something like this.
Yeah, the guilt that I had was how I was showing up for my family, especially in my like hormonal crisis phase. A lot of guilt for how I was losing my temper and just not nice to my kids and my husband. Oh, that was so painful. That was one of like, I'm so much better now. And I you know, hormone replacement therapy is not for everybody. And it has been incredibly supportive for me. And so I'm much more balanced with my moods. So I felt really guilty about how I was showing up to the people that I love the most. And I would say I'm not somebody who feels a ton of guilt, but I did feel shame around, like, I don't know, I was a breadwinner in my family for a long time. I am no longer at this moment, but making this transition definitely resulted in some impacts to our quality of life, our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because you don't just build a business overnight. It takes some time. Definitely some guilt and shame along the way around my like level of productivity and contribution. But I'm contributing and productive in different ways that are very rewarding and fulfilling.
So it transforms as opposed to something beginning and ending. It's this shift. And I was curious if you felt that you recognize the fact that you are where you are now in terms of your age. Is there a different sense of being a version that is new to the Christa?
What I'll say is that those words I used to describe myself at the top of the podcast would be very similar to the words I would have used to describe myself in my 20s. So who I am at my core has not fundamentally shifted. In fact, I've maybe become more of myself and more of who I am.
Oh, I love that.
However, one of my dear friends helped me realize, because I had a lot of fear in the past few years about going back, like repeating old patterns. And she was like, Christa, you couldn't go back if you tried. Like I was worried about taking on this project or a role and worried that I would go into my old pattern of 200% all in for the vision, the project, the founder, and lose myself again in my work. And she was like, oh, you couldn't go back if you tried. And that was kind of a light switch moment of like, you're right. I would never make the same decisions today that I made then. And so I really want to honor that as not becoming someone different, but an evolution of myself, right? And I'm learning to trust myself.
And you've done a beautiful job in guiding us back to the words that you used to describe yourself at the very beginning. And I love that you recognize that those are at the very core, those feel like those capture who Christa is and will always be.
Yeah.
And so those feel like your center.
Yep.
And I am curious if perhaps there are even other words that you may layer on
Yeah.
that suggest who you are in this
Now,
day as
yeah.
you've moved through all of this work.
Yeah, I'm evolved. I am evolving.
Evolved.
And something that I've learned that I know now that I couldn't unknow is that life and growth and development, it's not linear.
Okay.
It's this
Yep.
whole idea of work, do, effort, then
Right.
get the thing.
Yeah.
It's not how it works, friends. It's not how it works. Spoiler, our growth is not linear.
Yeah.
It is all over the road. And
thank goodness, because I think that's what makes it so interesting.
yeah, you all are helping me realize this learning, this awareness that is new, that I have, that I didn't have even 2 years ago, 5 years ago. But life is about energy, not effort.
I love that.
It's about how clear my vision is, how clear my intention is, and about making intentional choices. And so another part of my evolution is that I really like to see and know the path. So if I have a goal or a vision, if I have the roadmap and it's clear, nothing can get in my way. But when I don't know the how or see the roadmap, I get stuck. And that's really challenging for me. And entrepreneurship is like, that's what I don't know. I've never created a business before. I've never launched an online course before. So many of the things I'm doing today, I've never done before. And what I'm learning that I didn't, like what I know now that I didn't know then, is that it's not about having the full roadmap laid out, the full plan. It's about knowing what the one next step is, doing that and doing it well, and then trusting that the next step is going to reveal itself. And for me, it's about starting and then taking a step, taking action, and then trusting that once that's complete, the next step will reveal itself, and that kind of momentum, and taking the pressure off of needing the full playbook or roadmap or project plan. I'm just creating one step at a time, one day at a time right now. And it's fun. I'm having fun again, and it's serving me.
Fun is good.
Fun is definitely good. We need to all always write down fun as part of what we're up to.
It has to be fun. We have to find the fun.
You do. And I really appreciated this sense of slowing down. And what it reminded me of is how you had described how busy you had always been when you were 200% and you were doing all the things. And what kind of became a little bit of a vision was that as you were describing where you are now, it feels like you're having as much, if not more of an impact on the things that you're doing. But you're doing them with consideration and more thoughtfully and deliberately and slowly. And isn't that ironic that when we slow down, we can have more perhaps of an impact? Tell us about what your journey is now looking like.
Childhood is priceless until someone puts a price on it. When sex trafficking and exploitation threaten childhood, we need to rally everyone and everything to protect it. That's why our friends at Ally Global Foundation are building community-led solutions in Canada to tackle root causes and educate communities. For free prevention resources for your children or school, or to support Ally in protecting childhood, visit ally.org. That's ALLY.org. Because every child deserves safety and freedom.
So I'm about 2.5 years into working for myself, which, gosh, in May of 2025, it'll be 3 years. And holy smokes,
That's
I can't
amazing.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah,
thank
really
you, because it's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
Good
for sure
you.
it is. I'll never get used to, or maybe I will, the unknown, like not knowing what my next 6 and 12 months is going to look like in terms of my client, my portfolio. What are the projects I'm working on? Where is my revenue coming from? I'm really in for real. This focus on the thing that's right in front of me, do that well, and let the next thing reveal itself. And trusting that the next thing is going to continue to reveal itself. And 2.5 years later, it does. I've been able to keep myself busy doing the work that I love, supporting brands with their growth, with their leadership and or their community building initiatives. And it looks a lot different than it used to. And I don't know if I'll ever get fully comfortable with not knowing what the future is going to look like, or having like a guarantee that that paycheck is going to land in my bank account every 2 weeks. And I'm getting used to not having the benefits and the IT department and the finance team and the legal team.
My gosh,
like,
all the teams.
it's a lot. Like, it's not for the faint of heart, but I've been able to do really meaningful work with some really great clients and brands. I have a coaching business where I coach leaders one-on-one, and I have this incredible roster of clients, some startup founders in some really interesting spaces. And I work with leaders at different levels and kind of everything in between. So I'm really fortunate for my coaching practice and business. And then I've been doing consulting in the areas of leadership and community. I'm really passionate about designing experiences for brands and businesses. So internal experiences of leadership development, team building, strategic planning. So when teams have a need to come together in person to connect, align, and set themselves up to go after a vision or goals. And I believe so strongly in the depth of in-person experiences because of how much they've impacted me. So that's some of the work that I love to do. And then, my background really is in sales, marketing, brand marketing, and really my heart is in community engagement, community marketing. So recently I've teamed up with a dear friend and former colleague, Michelle Lazar is her name. She and I met, over 10 years ago now at Lululemon, and we got to work really closely together there. And then we both went on to spend some time in community marketing. And so I've known and loved Michelle for a long time. She came to me this spring with a vision and an idea. And, I'll be really transparent and say that it was informed and inspired by our experience leading brands and helping brands and businesses grow and seeing patterns and trends and what is really difficult for marketing and brand leaders today to navigate. And we believe really strongly in relationship-based and experiential programming, strategy, initiatives to help build, to drive organic traffic and create long-term loyalty for brands. And so we really, I want to nod to our experience at Lululemon, where we really learned this approach of building a brand, one relationship, one experience at a time. And we learned to do it really, really well with relatively limited resources. Honestly, Lululemon got very large very quickly with very conservative marketing budgets because of the commitment to these grassroots relationship-based approach to community building. And so we take inspiration from our past and our experiences to apply to the present. And we've birthed a masterclass in community marketing. And it's an online self-paced masterclass that covers 6 modules of the key pillars of community marketing as we see them. So it starts with the foundations of community marketing and philosophy and how to create the conditions inside your brand or your business. And then we look at things like ambassadors and influencers, events and activations, brand collaborations. And then we invited a subject matter expert friend of ours, Michelina, to come to help us create she did not help us. She created it herself, a module that is specifically dedicated to organic social media and content creation. And for those who don't know, when I say organic, I mean how to create content, resonance, and build a social media following without investing in paid tactics to do so.
Yeah.
So we have a whole module on organic social media and content. And then we have another module on what it looks like to execute a hyper-local strategy within a brick and mortar context. So we've created this comprehensive masterclass to help brands and businesses be able to create and execute a community-based marketing strategy. And so I think when I said earlier, I'm having fun again, it has something to do with reconnecting to the work that I love that has been incredibly fulfilling, that I know works. And Michelle and I, based on our firsthand experience, know that this is a moment in time where there's a gap in the market. And we think brands and businesses really need this. And we think it's going to be really inspiring for marketing leaders everywhere to reconnect to building brands in this really authentic way.
Oh, that's amazing. And there's so much to dig into there.
Do we have another hour
for
everybody?
at least another hour?
No.
One of the things that we started this conversation today, and we've all talked about it so much, and then we now have heard this beautiful description of the offering that you and Michelle, with your community, have now created, is the teaching of how to build community. And so it is so interesting to think about all the stories that you've shared through your life and through your career. What has been woven in its entirety all the way through is your community. So it is, whether it's your coaches, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, your colleagues, new people that you're meeting, you have described a lifetime of stories and experiences that have been created by interacting and having relationship with your community.
Wow.
And I think about all the things that we're all doing, what we're doing here today, what you and Michelle, who's part of that community, and us who are part of your community now, like what we're all doing is building community. And that's because that's at the center of allowing people to feel valued, that they're contributing, that they matter, that they're connected, that they are making a difference, that people see them, that people are aware of their story and what they bring. And so it just feels so incredibly powerful to me and aligned to have heard your story, and that you are doing this work. Because I can think of many people, and I have so many people that I'm so grateful for, including you, who epitomize community for me. And you are by far one of those that are part of that, that echelon of folks who, to me, feel like coming home, feel like a place that is a community that's already built and so welcoming. So I am grateful that you're doing the work that lights you up and has you now so excited. I can see it. And even when you're talking about it, because we can all, when we're talking about things that we love, we can just keep talking. And that's what you're able to do through all of this, is have all the words, because it's such a passion project and it's such a passionate part of what you're doing. But I also feel like it's really important for us to all lightly touch on that you where you are, Christa where she is, me where I am, meaning in our midlives. We are where we are with the things that we're able to do only by virtue of being where we are in our midlives. And I think
1,000%.
And so I think that for me is also another piece that really resonates, is because there is a narrative that exists that as women become older, as women hit those milestone ages of their 40s, their 50s, beyond, that they are somehow waning, that they are somehow becoming drained of that brightness, energy, ability. My desire in this work is to, in fact, shift that narrative, because we are all where we are because of the age we are. And we're all getting to a place like you're describing, where we are stronger by virtue of where we are in our lives. We are far more experienced. We have now renewed energy because we know how to take care of ourselves, or learning to take care of ourselves much better. We know who we are and what we're good at, and also have the humility now to recognize where we're not meant to be, which doesn't occur when we're in when we're in our 20s and 30s. So we are where we are because of where we've gotten to from an age and from an experience perspective, but we are by no means fading.
Heck no.
Becoming less than, becoming not as capable or not as valuable. It is exactly this kind of story that you've shared that shifts that narrative. And that's what Half Betty is bringing to life. So
thank you, Betty.
Yeah.
Betty, for the inspiration. And here's the thing, and this feels important for me to share because I'm just getting it all now. Like I 1,000% agree with everything that you just said. There has to be dark before there is light. And I really couldn't imagine being on the other side of what I was in 2 or 3 years ago, like in the kind of the darkest chapter of my life. I wasn't sure if I would ever see the light again, if I would ever have energy again, if I'd ever be inspired and having fun or, contributing. So what I'm saying is I'm really inspired by this idea of the caterpillar, and I'm going to butcher the scientific part of this, but like the chrysalis. I read or heard somewhere that like the caterpillar needs to do all of the wiggling self. Like if you were to come along and help the caterpillar open up out of its cocoon, it would die. It has to do all of the work to get to this place of metamorphosis and expansion. And that's where I actually feel like I'm just breaking through and beginning to spread my wings. And I felt like I wasn't sure if I ever would. So I'm quite moved by what you just described, Andrea, because this is it. I feel as though I'm getting ready to contribute and create a really positive impact in this next chapter of my life. And I'm just like really aware that I needed to go through and experience everything that I've experienced in order to like be here and have the opportunity to break out of the cocoon and spread my wings. And I hope for anybody out there that's listening that might be going through like a difficult or a dark time or navigating grief or anything, that you can trust that it's necessary for your evolution and ultimately transformation. Like it's a necessary part of life. And I'm really excited about what happens next. Who knows?
And how hopeful all of that is for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it will, I love the description.
Yeah. You like my
the wiggling.
I do like the movements too.
Thing like a caterpillar trying to break out.
It was actually really perfect. Like, I literally saw a caterpillar emerging.
The dancer in me is like really
You're like interpretive dance. That was so perfect. What I appreciate is we're all uniquely in our own life story. And so what's going to happen for you is not going to happen exactly for me or for Christa and vice versa, or for all of those out there. But what we can count on is that by virtue of being human and what life shares with humans, we are all going to have experiences that are very, very difficult. And that in particular in this midlife period of time when there are so many things that are shifting and changing, that it could be one of those metamorphic phases that we all go through. And it will happen at some time, but it's not going to happen necessarily at the same time for each of us. How hopeful and beautiful is it that we know and we can trust that there's an opportunity for us to have this emergence into a second scene.
Especially when you embrace your community.
Second scene. Yeah. Thanks for, wow, Andrea, you really listen in a way that I haven't felt like quite so seen and acknowledged before. So thank you so much for your generosity of listening and for reflecting back my whole life a few moments ago, the way that you did. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Lee.
So grateful. I've been talking about how I get goosebumps all the times these days too. That maybe that's hormones. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's actually this sense of awe. But I have had, and I wish that we could all see it on the screen. Maybe that's
I see your hair showing up.
Right? I have had goosebumps through this entire conversation because of how moving it is and how important it is and how grateful I am for this conversation and for you, Christa Hull.
Thanks for being so open.
That
we just got to be here. Yes, please.
One of my favorite KPIs, because we're thinking, what's the return on investment? Community marketing. One of my favorite KPIs is KPI Goosebumps.
That's brilliant.
And also KPI Hard Nips. 2 indications that you're moving in the right direction.
What happens if they have them at the same time?
I was just saying,
you're really onto something. But it's like, we can measure it all in metrics and financial reports.
Oh my gosh.
Or we can measure it in goosebumps and hard nips.
Okay, we're going to just this. Why don't we just leave it there?
Thanks for having me. I adore you both.
Thank you, Christa. Likewise.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, thanks for the opportunity. What a gift.
That was
Did Andrea really hang up?
She did. She got all excited.
Hi, I'm back. Even though I left the call in a rush of excitement, I'm here. Thank you for listening to the second episode of Half Betty with our guest, Christa Hull. We really appreciate you listening, and we'd love to invite you to follow Half Betty wherever you listen to your podcasts, as this will make sure that you get notified when a new episode drops. And if you're inclined, a review of the show really does help, and we read every single one. Reviews highlight what we should continue to do and also where we can adjust. And finally, to see Half Betty in some other spots, you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks much. Until next time.